Saagar, this will transition us to the next piece.
Yes.
I think he also is enamored with the real estate developer possibilities of the Gaza Strip.
Definitely. Yeah, that's right. All right, let's get to that, shall we? Because this, we both were going through the post-war plan, the PowerPoints, which remarkably are actually out in the open. And it's actually insane. Let's go and put this up here on the screen. This was from the Washington Post. Gaza post-war plan envisions, quote, voluntary relocation of the entire population. It's called the Great Trust, from a demolished Iranian proxy to a prosperous Abrahamic ally. Let's stick with that. It's the Gaza Reconstruction Economic Acceleration Transformation, or GREAT, as they are calling it. You can actually look at the prospectus. It's linked there. It's completely public. It, quote, envisions a temporary relocation of all of Gaza's more than 2 million population through what it calls voluntary departure to another country or into restricted secured zones inside the enclave during reconstruction. It would be financed, it says, by various shady entities. And I think the most important part here is that it would entail basically the United States being responsible for this. Much of the financial planning has been done by Boston Consulting Group. So this is like inclusion of all of the worst of America. And it's
now they distance themselves now, by the way, for the lawyers.
Anyway, but yeah, for the lawyers, they've put out a statement, etc. But at the very least, this is a classic Jared Kushner style, which, I mean, look, he even said it, right? Over a year ago. He was like, oh, some of the best real estate in the world. And I do think that they are genuinely like enamored by what you said of the Riviera of the Middle East. But the most appealing part to Trump is that, quote, it requires no U.S. government funding and other significant profit to investors. Instead, what it would do is use private U.S. security contractors to distribute food in 4 Gazan locations, like with the GHF, which is de facto under Israeli control. And it would be financed by public and private sector investment for mega projects, from electric vehicle plants, data centers, beach resorts, and high-rise apartments. Now, obviously, I think the question of like who gets to live there seems to be pretty important. And like the GHF, what we have basically seen is this private quasi-force, which includes and is funded by the United States, by the Israeli government. What we know from GHF whistleblower Anthony Aguilar is that the Israelis were the, quote, client and were effectively the ones running this. And if the 2 million people who leave and you build this great resort for, who's it for? Is it for the Israelis? So it's a U.S.-funded development resort Disneyland project so that people in Tel Aviv can come to the beach? Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
That's why it's, I mean, disaster capitalism does not even capture what the hell this is. This is dark.
This is like the end stage of capitalism.
Yeah.
Genocide on behalf of development.
It reminds me of that show, the Amazon Prime show about if the Nazis won the war. I'm totally blanking.
Oh, Man in the High Castle.
That's what it is. It's like oh, what New York would have looked like if the Nazis had won. It's like bullet trains and super fast Concorde aircraft, and then people are driving through the Midwest and there's ashes, and they're like, oh yeah, it's time for the hospital to burn the bodies. You're like, what? Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the technological future that they envision. So it's, I mean, I won't go that far. It's not as bad, but it's pretty bad.
I mean, it's pretty again, we're talking about committing a genocide and an ethnic cleansing so we can clean out a population so that Trump and Kushner and his buddies can make millions on a real estate deal. That's what we're talking. I mean, and I have to say, the way this article sets it up, like, to not use any language around that is also really a disgrace when it's all laid out in the open. The mechanics of how they describe this, too, are utterly horrifying. First of all, they envision GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that Tony Aguilar has been blowing the whistle on, a bunch of paid American mercenary thugs who are apparently comfortable with murdering children as they seek aid. They're central to this plan. They lay out the different phases. In phase number 1, they call it humanitarian operations. Israel fights to dismantle Hamas. GHF provides Hamas-free secure aid and temporary housing. They operate under a humanitarian mandate to secure humanitarian operations and personnel. That's what they claim GHF is doing. In the next phase, the Great Trust is created. GHF folds under the Great Trust, and they're used. So I want you guys to understand too that this connects directly to what's happening on the ground right now with GHF. And this again is what Anthony Aguilar said. He said, this is not an aid operation. These are shaping operations. What are the shaping operations meant to enable? This is it. To lure the population, to force them through starvation into certain parts of the Strip. Right now, once again, the IDF is in, bombing the hell out of Gaza City. By the way, attacking people who are trying to flee, trying to follow the orders, and they're still attacking and murdering these people who are trying to do what they're told by the IDF they have to do. But in any case, they are part and parcel of this plan to fully get rid of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and create this Trump Riviera Gaza situation. Absolute insanity. And they talk in the cold language of the BCG consultants in this PowerPoint about how much more cost effective it will be if they can lure more Gazans to completely leave the Strip. We'll save $30,000 for each Palestinian that we lure to go to, whatever country, Somaliland or whatever country agrees to ultimately take them. That's the way this is all laid out. And I really, there's something about the combination of this corporate speak, real estate development PowerPoint, when like we showed you the images, we know what is happening on the ground. We know the way that humans are being murdered and children destroyed and limbs amputated and the level of trauma and the complete destruction of, this was a real place with schools and hospitals and churches and mosques and community and family and cemeteries and life and culture and all of this. And you're just clearing it aside so Trump can build a fucking beachside hotel. It's sick. It is absolutely sick. And the fact that it happens out in the open, that we can see the documents and the plans are announced and it just unfolds, it truly does blow my mind. It really does blow my mind.
Yeah, let's put E4 up on the screen, because I think what's important to also note is how explicit the current campaign in Gaza City is with what this aim is, as opposed to the ostensible war. Because if you listen to Scott Jennings on CNN, it's really, what about the hostages? What about the hostages? All of the security cabinet, all of the IDF told Netanyahu, any Gaza City takeover will not defeat Hamas, and they are begging for him to accept the, quote, limited hostage deal, which has been on the table, the Witkoff proposal, for what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks now, that has been accepted by Hamas. They say, no, we're not going to do that. Instead, pushing out and taking over Gaza City is what? Eradication, destruction, and the creation of the zone so that you can eventually annex it and create the Gaza Riviera, which, by the way, they don't have to pay for, because, of course, why would they have to pay for it, even though they broke all of it out, and they want America to pay for it, and the UAE and all these other countries, and then to use the full might of the empire to actually force this expulsion and then pay for and quasi-finance the development of Disneyland for Israelis. I mean, it's pretty insane and sickening, but that's the only way that you can actually make this all make sense, especially in the context of they've been threatening what? They have been threatening the current, official annexation of the West Bank. Not that they obviously don't occupy it now. And then the Greater Israel Project is in full force, except by this time, it's paid for by the U.S. taxpayer, financed for the U.S. dollar. That's the really sick and insane part of it.
Yeah, and there's put E2 up on the screen. There happens to be a crypto scam also at the heart of this. I mean, just to put the most modern dystopian spin on it possible, those Palestinians who own land will be offered a digital token by the trust in exchange for rights to redevelop their property. Oh, they'll be offered that. How kind of them. They'll get a digital token for their land that they, have had in their family for generations. Yeah. Unbelievable. And then, as this is happening and unfolding again in front of our eyes, we can put E3 up on the screen. You have the foremost Association of Scholars of Genocide, who just voted overwhelmingly, I think it was 86% or something, to say, yes, it's a genocide. And they join the view of the provisional ruling of the ICJ. They join the view of other scholars around the world, of Amnesty International, of B'Tselem, of all sorts of international human rights organizations. Saagar doesn't use that term, so put him aside. But for those who embrace this term and think that it means something and think that it should apply in certain situations, there is a consensus now, and it is no longer a question.
Well, I wouldn't deny that within the confines of the term, there doesn't.
Yeah,
I've never.
I know, and that's what I'm.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm
for
saying.
sure. Yeah, and look, I mean, and this is part of where Netanyahu. This is part of why, because it all gets, wrapped in the thing. Netanyahu goes on PBD and he's like, of course I'll recognize the Armenian genocide, right? And it's like, so the Armenian genocide was a genocide and it was a mass murder, but this one is not. And so then it gets all this tedious genocide, this and that. It goes back, I've talked about this from 1948, the Genocide Convention. It was literally a term made up by a Polish writer in the 1940s. It was basically meant to invoke like a post-World War II doctrine of quote unquote, never again, even though by its own terms it's obviously happened over and over again. That's probably why I just reject the term. I think mass murder is fine. And because I think that in general, if you operate based on American interest, or if most countries do, then a lot of these things won't happen. The only reason that stuff like this even does happen is because of this slavish devotion that we have over to Israel. If it was treated like a normal state, they would be killing nobody. And if other people, Western style democracies and others really lived up to their, my point is just that nobody ever actually lives up to this human rights style rhetoric, because it's bullshit and it's just fake law created post-World War II to make America feel good about itself, even though we have, and many other countries, have perpetuated horrific disasters, point them. But yes, within that framework, of course, I wouldn't deny it at all.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's undeniable at this point. 10% of the population, again, either murdered or injured, and they're actively announcing their ethnic cleansing plans. Like, what are we doing here if you're still in denial of that?
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.